This free agency crop at the end of the 2024 AFL season shapes to be one of the more intriguing in recent years. Whilst we might not have the ultimate big names that we've had in seasons past, I think there are a lot of worthwhile players to talk about, and AFL.com.au just released, at the time of recording, the full list. So whilst some players may get a minute, some might get a second and a half, let's go through the free agency class and have an in-depth discussion. Let's do it. So first of all, I'd like to apologise for the fact that lights aren't working. The setup today has just been a nightmare, but I want to get this done. So let's get it done. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. All that good shit, guys. The fact that we've hit 2,500 is extraordinary. I can't thank you all enough, and I know you want to get your videos off to a good, momentous start, but I am so nearly swore then grateful for every single one of you, no matter 1 to 2,500 where you sat in that queue. Every view, every subscribe, every like means the absolute world. Every comment, and you guys love disagreeing with me or agreeing with me, of course, throughout. I love responding to you guys. Good, honest footy conversation is what Daz Talks Footy is all about. Let's get into this. Now, my favourite thing before we get to the names, because I have to scroll down a bit to set this up, but I haven't read the full list yet, but the article title, so what you click on, that little tidbit at the start, says trade targets, your team's free agents revealed. You don't trade for free agents. So we're already off to a good start there. But anyway, let's get to it. Adelaide, Will Hamill, that's an interesting name to kick things off with. I like him a lot at the Crows. I think he might be on the radar of a few clubs if he has a career best year. Definitely could be on the move. I really like him at the Crows, though, and I know Crows fans are fans as well. Elliot Himmelberg, I mean, I do find it funny how every time a brother might be on the move, or someone, who's got a brother in the AFL is always like, are they going to link up? Are they going to play in the same team? They don't always have to play in the same team, guys, my God. But he might be one to watch. They did bring in Chris Burgess as sort of depth, key position depth, and he's still key position depth as well, so a little bit of a watch on him. Keys, I don't think will go anywhere. Sloan might retire at the end of the year. Brodie Smith, very underrated player. I've loved Brodie Smith for his entire career. I don't think he'd go anywhere else. I don't think this will be his last year either. But Taylor Walker won't go anywhere, and James Boulais, who's shown a little bit, but I don't think he's going to attract too much attention from other clubs, but could be a little bit of a piece. Now, we know that Hugh McCluggage is the big name here for the Lions, so let's talk about him last. So, Dara Joyce got the reprieve after being at St Kilda, of course. Ryan Lester's going nowhere. Brisbane love him, and what a story he's been. Jared Lyons is an interesting one. The problem with Jared is that he's a bit one-paced in that midfield. He doesn't have a whole lot of tricks, and for successful midfields in the AFL now, you need your midfielders to be able to do, instead of 1 or 2 things really well, we're starting to head towards the 2, 3, 4 things really well area, and he struggled with that at times. Very good player, and one that I've enjoyed watching a lot. Zorko's going nowhere, but I think that if someone told me that one Brisbane player was leaving in free agency this year, I would say it's Jared Berry, more than Hugh McCluggage. I honestly don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think he's a blank checkbook kind of player. I don't think he's potentially a number 1. I think he's, an awesome number 2 as a midfielder. And of course, if you think of Brisbane, you could argue Neil and Dunkley are 1 and 2, and the Hugh Mack himself might be a number 3. But I would be a little bit cautious about a number 1 midfield title. But it kind of reminds me, if we use sort of an NBA comparison here, a bit like Jaylen Brown at the Boston Celtics. A terrific number 2, one of the better number 2s in the league. I'm not sure he would thrive as a number 1, even though he's had to do it in the past. Jason Tatum doesn't miss too many games. Lachie Neale, Josh Dunkley don't miss too many games, and didn't last year. Of course, Neale winning the Brownlow helps there, but if I'm Brisbane, I wouldn't do what Boston did and make him the highest earning player in the league, I think, let alone his team. But if I'm a club out there, I think I need to have one midfielder at least, better than Hugh Mack. But if you've got the money to spare, I think he would be a delightful little piece The perfect fit would probably be Essendon if they didn't have about 14 other midfielders. I think St Kilda would be a massively good fit as well, the Victorian boy. And I think the underrated one, just off the top of my head, might be a club like Freo. Doing a reverse Lachie-Neale, if you were. I think Freo could look at him. Sarong, Brayshaw, Hayden Young, and Hugh McCluggage. Beautiful. But I honestly think Jared Berry could be on the move. And I reckon he might be Magpie. Is the club that stands out to me the most. Off the top of my head. Carlton, David Cunningham, Sam Durden, Jack Martin, Matt Cottrell, Caleb Marchbank. Not a lot to say about any of these guys, really, in terms of how much they're going to attract, how much attention they're going to attract, or impact they might have in the free agency market. So we're going to move past them pretty quickly. I do like Sam Durden out of those guys the most. Marchbank, incredibly unlucky with injuries, talent-wise. Very, very good, but he just hasn't been able to get on the park, and we feel for him. But Carlton, pretty boring free agency class this year, which is a good thing if you're the Blue Baggers. Hoskin Elliott, I don't think will go to another club. I think Howe, Pendlebury, and Sidebottom are closer to retiring as Magpies. They're not going anywhere, guys. Nowhere near it. And Oleg Markov, what a story for Collingwood to put the faith in him that they did. And with how good he was last year, he'd be pretty silly, I think, to depart from the Pies. So yet another bit of a boring free agency there. But the good clubs, not a lot of noise. Pretty good thing. Although, Hawthorn had a lot of noise in 2013 about Bud. Didn't affect them too much, so you can look at it in one way or another. The Bombers, Dyson Heppel, Todd Goldstein going nowhere. Jay Kelly would be a good fit at a few other clubs, but I definitely don't think Essendon would let him go without a fight. Andy McGrath, I think, is going to be the guy who, when a lot of either content creators or AFL media themselves looking at you, hard rated free agents to look at. We're sick of talking about Hugh McCluggage and Tim English and these guys, who's someone else we can talk about. I feel like he'll be the one that comes front of mind. Good player. If he was drafted anywhere else but number one, I think we would call him a tick, but for some reason you have to be the best player in your draft class to be a good number one draft pick, apparently, according to Moron. So, do feel for Andy there. I definitely wouldn't put him in the A-grade category just yet. But he's definitely not a flop, so stop saying that, people. Speaking of boring free agency classes, Freo, Ethan Hughes, Matt Taberner, Corey Wagner, Bailey Banfield, not a whole lot to say there, I don't think. Even if they did change clubs, the only one that I think would be of vast interest would be Taberner, but he's a bit old and all those sorts of things. But yeah, they're fine. Jared Healy loves Bailey Banfield, I think, more than his own family, which is nice. Shout out to you, Jared. Ethan Hughes has been pretty serviceable, and Corey Wagner a really good return to the AFL last year in his limited time. And we know the injury frustrations with Matty Taberner. Now, this gets a little bit more interesting. The Kitty Cats, Jed Buse, yes, he's got the fatherly connection, but I think he's a guy plenty of clubs will want to inquire about. Now, whether these inquiries go anywhere, so don't get too pissed off at me, Geelong fans, remains to be seen. But I think he's a guy that other clubs are definitely going to be like, could be one. Danger's going nowhere. Duncan nowhere. I think Zach Guthrie is going to attract a lot of attention from other clubs. Had a really good finish to the year last year. Hawkins going nowhere, and I think everyone else on this list is probably more interesting on paper than in reality. I don't see Colajasny and O'Connor going anywhere. I think Brandon Parfit and Jack Henry are the two to look at the most for opposition clubs. Stengel, they revitalised his career, going nowhere. Jekka, the same, you would imagine. I don't see Jack Henry going anywhere. I really don't. But again, he's going to be a guy that plenty of clubs are going to inquire about, so we'll keep an eye on him. Brandon Parfit, I think this is going to be his last year at the Cats. Whether that's going to be as another club swoops in as a free agent, but if he can't have a really good year this year with the Geelong midfield looking the way that it is, he needs a fresh start. I don't think that's too out there, and Zach Tui as well going nowhere. Gold Coast, Benny Ainsworth, who I think can have a career best year this year. Sam Day, really unlucky with injuries, and the rest of the guys on this list I don't think are going anywhere. Darcy McPherson is a guy that clubs might look at. He went to a half-back the back end of last year, so again, one to look at, a little bit of interest there, but the rest of that list are just guys you expect to either stick around or not do a whole lot. Now we start to delve into the melting pot that is the GWS Giants. Isaac Cumming, I think, will be on 10 clubs' radars, really. And the only clubs that wouldn't want him are guys that have already got his type of player. So Freo wouldn't be interested. They've got Luke Ryan. Essendon wouldn't be interested. They've got Jordan Ridley. Hawthorn wouldn't be interested. They've got James Sicily. That type of tall intercepting player would probably cross Isaac Cumming's name off the list. But Nick Haynes, who GWS reportedly, apparently, offered up for trade to get rid of his large contract. He'll be hitting free agency and can be paid probably significantly less than the last couple of years on his deal, and I think will appeal to a lot of clubs who might need a veteran defender. Look out for the Hawks in that regard. Look out for North in that regard as well. He's going to give up a lot less draft capital than a Sam Taylor, if we're looking at key defenders that those clubs that need one might be looking at. Adam Kennedy, I don't think is going to attract too much interest, but Harry Perryman definitely will. And I'm not trying to retire Steel Side Bottom early. I'm really not. But can you imagine Harry Perryman at the Pies? Holy smokes. I also wouldn't mind seeing Harry Perryman at the Crows either. Might be a good fit there. Brisbane would be a good fit for Harry Perryman as well. The Hawks, not a lot here going on. Luke Bruce is going to retire a Hawk. Blake Hardwick would have to be dragged out of Waverley by his armpits. I don't think he would go anywhere. Harry Morrison might get another chance somewhere else, potentially, seeing as he's now pretty much wing depth if CJ and Weddle and Amon, and I know these guys are training at halfback as well as the wing. You got Joshy Ward as well. The Hawks delisted Lockie Bramble last year, and HMO, who debuted in Hodgie's retirement game in 2017, I think. So, probably could be a little bit further along. You'd think Connor Nash had a career best year last year. If there was ever a time Chad Wingard was going to move clubs, it was going to be last year, do his recovery and go to a Collingwood, for example, to chase a flag. So I don't think he'll go anywhere. And fingers crossed Cooper Stevens can get through his concussion protocols. But if someone might need some midfield depth, he might be the guy. But if he can't get on the park, it's going to be unfortunate for him. Now, there's a guy on this list here for the Ds that I think is super interesting when it comes to the free agency period, and that's Tom McDonald. I think he's going to attract a lot of interest from other clubs, and with Jacob Van Rooyen, with Matty Jefferson, I still think Melbourne can keep him around, but he just can't be the focal point anymore. JVR needs to be that guy. I still think Matty Jefferson needs to get a run when he's ready, but Tom McDonald is going to be the big name to watch there. Melksham, I don't think, unless, does he try to chase a flag somewhere else? Which I think is what, if you're a free agent in your 30s, chase your flags. I've got no problem with that at all. Tomlinson, good depth piece for another club potentially. I don't think you'd want him as your number 1 or number 2 defender. Marty Hall's just gotten back on the list, so I don't think he would go anywhere. And Joel Smith, will have to wait and see what happens with him. Not a lot of great importance for North with the first 4 names there. Hugh Greenwood, I don't think will get on another list. Bigoa just came from the Tigers, so don't really have to worry about him. Toby Pink, first year on the list, would be really weird for them to come in for a year as delisted free agents. And then dominate. Liam Shields as well, don't think he'll go anywhere. Will Pup, I think he would take on a mentorship role at North Melbourne. And Cam Zohar's going to be at either Essendon or St Kilda, because that's kind of how these things work. A half forward that can play half forward is seemingly what Essendon and St Kilda have loved in the free agency markets in recent times, so that's what I expect will happen. But Cam Zohar will not be at North in 2025. I am reasonably confident in that call. Port, Boak, Dixon, experienced guys, they won't really go anywhere. I think they're going to win the race for Todd Marshall as well. I don't think he's going to go anywhere either. But if he was going to be on the move, again, I expect a team like Collingwood to be really, really interested. Essendon to be really, really interested. Fremantle should be really, really interested. West Coast should be really, really interested. But he'll get plenty of suitors. But my instincts say he'll stay at Port. Francis Evans is still fighting for his career, so he's all good there. Trent McKenzie, I think, just let him play his natural game as a back pocket rather than a key defender, and he'll have a really, really good year. Will that mean he'll leave? My instincts say no. And I think Quinton Narkle's at his last club, so we'll see how he goes at Port. Port Adelaide and the Crows, but more Port have had an interest in Jack Graham in a big, big way in the last couple of seasons. He's kind of fallen out of favour, but given that Cochin's not there anymore, I think Jack Graham, and under Adam Uze, he can revitalise his career and potentially could be a target for a couple of clubs. Noah Cumberland is a guy that I'm just a massive fan of. Love Noah in a big, big way. And I hope he can have an outstanding season as well. Got plenty to work on, and what he's got now is pretty exciting. Dylan Grimes is not going anywhere. Dusty's not going anywhere. Stop with the Gold Coast bullshit, for frick's sake. Camden McIntosh is an interesting one to watch. I actually think he's going to be gone at the end of this year, and I reckon we can hope, or not hope, we don't want players to leave. I reckon if I was to put a coin on it, he will be at the Dockers next year. Camden McIntosh, round 1, 2025, on the wing for the Dockers. Toby Nankervis going nowhere. Don't think Prestia is either, and we'll see how Miller and Naismith go. I hope Naismith can get some time this year, see what he can do. Good depth piece for the Tigers if Nankervis gets hurt. Josh Battle is the most interesting player on this list by a mile. Mile. When it comes to the free agency, I just think he's just really dependable. Really, really good. Beautiful kick. Clubs will want him. My instincts say he'll probably stay. Riley Bonner, delisted from Port, so he'll be all good there, and I think can provide, really good games for the Saints. I reckon he can play 12-plus games this year. Tommy Campbell, we know he's a depth piece for Rowan Marshall. Tim Membry, I think, is going nowhere. I'm not really sure what Seb Ross would offer another club that would give him a free agency contract. I think he finishes up at the Saints, whenever that may be. Jimmy Webster might be a guy to look at if he can be healthy, but he's had some health issues in the past, and Mason Wood's going to stay at the Saints. They've revitalised his career, and same with Liam Stocker. The Swans, I can't see anyone from this list leaving to another club unless it's Sam Reid. But again, is someone going to offer him, 2 years? Even 2 years is a risk with his body. The rest of those guys I don't think will go anywhere. Not a whole lot to talk about. Liam Duggan is going to be interesting on this list as well because he's young, he's exciting. I think Jermaine Jones is going to be a guy other clubs look at as well. Josh Rotham, apparently spoken about in some trade talks last year, which I find super interesting. I think Elliot Yeo will stay. I think if he was going to go flag chasing at the end of his career, he might have done it at the end of last year if clubs were interested. Didn't hear a whole lot about that. Andrew Gaff, the same. So if they're healthy, they should hopefully have better seasons than last year, you'd like to think. And Zane True was put back on their list this off-season, so fingers crossed he can have a good year as well. The Bulldogs, we know the big name there. I think Jason Johannesson's the underrated guy here. I think other clubs are going to look at him in a big, big way. He's won the flag, obviously, the Norm Smith. Could another club come knocking and come and wrench him out of the kennel? Potentially, of course, potentially. Libba's going nowhere. The two lockies there, I don't think I've got too much to say. I think Taylor DeRay's been a really good pickup for the Doggies, done his job beautifully down there. Don't think he'll go to a third club. And Tim English, I think, is pretty much just going to be either the Bulldogs or West Coast. And it, family plus coin, I think, is going to be the decision. I think they're definitely, the Eagles in this case, are going to be able to offer him a lot more than the Bulldogs can. So we'll see how he goes, and it'll be interesting to see how much he wants to play for Bevo in 2025 and beyond, whether he goes to the Eagles. So there you go, guys. I know there might not be the big names, but some guys to look out for. Is there a free agent you're confident will move clubs at the end of the year? Who knows, but I'm looking forward to finding out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Dads Talks Footy family. Thank you so much again for 2,500, and I will see you later on in the week. Goodbye.